Good morning, everyone, and welcome to EDspresso Café. We find ourselves on episode 19, which we have maybe with a little bit of cheekiness and a little bit of fun and play, called Beam Me Up, Scotty, Out of This World PBL. And I am so pleased to be joined this morning by Renee Harris from Rustenburg Girls. Thank you for joining me for a cuppa.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
It's a pleasure. I love what you do. So it's a privilege to spend time with you. So I was thrilled to hear about the inquiry-based learning journey that you took your grade 3 girls on around the topic of space. And I was particularly thrilled because I think that's a topic that if you're a teacher, you will have tackled it in one way or another. If you teach littlies or you teach high school, it's just one of those topics that, I mean, obviously it features strongly in CAPS, but also just one of those topics that we all remember learning about. Even if it's just the, my voice echoes my jolly song under 9 planets or whatever, some kind of acronym to remember the order of the planets. It's such a kind of a relevant topic and a big topic in teaching. So before we hear about how you've kind of transformed the learning experience for your girls with this topic, I'd love to know kind of, obviously, you've been a teacher for many years, and you're very experienced, and you've been in the game a long time. How did you used to teach space? Like, what did what kind of things did you do with your students before you rethought the way of doing this?
Yeah, so Lindsay, I have been teaching for many years, 27 to be exact.
Sure.
Yeah, and I have a good couple more to go. So I think, first and foremost, I've been through something like 5 different curriculums across my 27 years in education. And what I found was that either the curriculum was very structured and rigid, and it didn't allow for any space, any movement, or it was too open-ended and out there, airy-fairy, as it were. If we think of OBE, it was
wow, that was a journey.
So, but one thing that I do know about teachers, me being one of them, we are creatures of habit. We tend to shy away from change. We do things in a particular way, it works well, so why reinvent the wheel? So I think typically, being a foundation phase teacher, what we would normally do is you were taught at teacher training, you had to do this phenomenal introduction. So either you'd start, because we're talking about life skills here, either you'd start with a little poem or a song, a little bit of a dance, trying to get the kids excited. And then you'd start a discussion from that story or video or song or whatever you were doing. So teacher training taught us that the introduction is so important to grip the learners and so on. But typically what we would do is we would go planet by planet and maybe show them a video or two, try and bring in some crossword puzzles. So in essence, we'd have a little booklet that we'd put together. And as we ventured through each planet, we would have little fun activities. And that's kind of what it looked like. I thought it was quite exciting. I mean, we did try and add a little bit of song and dance in between. In my mind, I was doing a great job. The kids were engaged. They loved what they were doing. But that's typically what it looked like. A good introduction, planet by planet, an activity little booklet, so that at the end of the theme, they kind of could spit out the information that we needed around the various planets. Yeah. And that's typically how every life skills lesson went.
And I love that you've highlighted the kind of the teacher as the, the teacher theatrics, if we call it that. It's like I sometimes call it the popcorn show. When it comes to high school teaching, because the students kind of sit there and they wait for you to like deliver the show, and I think it's so typical of like what we think is the teacher's responsibility, right? To go and be like, listen, yeah, guys, woo! And then obviously with the littlies, you've got more kind of activity-based things, but that is it's a very common way.
You decorate your classroom and the theme is all up there. Everybody knows that we're going to be learning about space and so on, Exactly. But I think the one thing that was missing, Lindsay, was around back in the day when I started teaching. Yeah. If little Susie came to school with a butterfly, you would drop everything and life would be about the butterfly. Everything that you did was about the butterfly, but the curriculum became so complex and there was so much to get through that you kind of like, oh, that's wonderful, Susie, put it away, and we moved on. So we lost that somewhere along the way.
Yeah, you kind of squash that natural curiosity.
Yeah.
Or just, don't feel like there's space for it. Okay, so from what is on our stories page on our website, that looks very, very different from what you've just described. But before we get to the details of kind of how you reimagined this learning journey through space and about space, I'm keen to know what changed for you. So what made you rethink the way that you were teaching this topic and any others that you've rethought? Like, what was the kind of the journey that shifted your thinking and your teaching?
Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, I must admit. I think, as I said, I thought I was doing an amazing job. My supervisors always told me, you're such a good teacher and so on. But I think that I'm one of those people who kind of, I can't sit still. You get that itch and you kind of like, but what was happening was I was becoming very bored. So, the same themes are there in life skills because the curriculum is quite rigid and structured in that way. So you kind of get into a rut of the same thing over and over again, and you go on the same outings, you produce the same booklet, and as a teacher, you become quite bored. And it got more and more difficult to fake it as you make it. You're going to introduce this theme with a new class.
I'm very excited to teach this for the second time. Yeah.
So it got more and more difficult to be enthusiastic about something that you've been doing for the last 20 years. And when I arrived at Rustenburg, the school was on a journey of, just in terms of our academic vision, the management team, the drive was for 21st century teaching, because ultimately we are preparing the kids for a future that doesn't exist yet. We don't even know what it will look like. So, I started listening to this and I could kind of relate because, I was sitting in the space where I was bored with the way I was teaching and the content that I was delivering, the same thing over and over again. But I didn't know where to. How do you change this? So
I think a lot of those 21st century skills are very like abstract. It's like, our kids need to learn how to communicate and they need to collaborate and they need to be creative and they need to be critical thinkers. But the how do I get there? And like, is group work different from collaboration? Like, if I'm doing group work, does that mean I'm developing the skill of collaboration with my students? Like, I think that's a very real kind of cognitive jump for a lot of teachers to make, because it's like we see the value. We're like, okay, I recognize how those skills are important, but then how do I actually get there?
Yeah. And if we think of technology and how it's advanced, we kind of teaching in the beehive hairstyle and polka dots era, yet we're preparing kids for a future that is, one can't even begin to imagine what it's going to look like for them. But I watched a video once, which I recently shared with the school management team. It's called I Sued the School. And so there's your typical lawyer who's presenting his case, and he shows these pictures. This was a telephone long ago. This is the telephone today, the cell phone. It was very visual. This was what transport looked like. This is what it looks like now. And then he showed
We'll pop the link. We'll pop the link to the video in the description.
Awesome. And then he showed a picture of a classroom way back then, and he showed a picture of the modern classroom today, and there was no difference.
Yeah.
It really got me thinking, but back to the question of where did the shift happen? So I arrived at Rustenburg. There was an academic vision to move towards 21st century teaching. But again, I didn't know what it looked like. And for me, if I go to a workshop, I'm one of those, show me. Don't speak to me. Don't come with all the theory. I need to see what this looks like. And I think most teachers are like that.
Yeah.
So I was grappling with this in my mind, and we decided to bring PurpleZA on board at Rustenburg. So it was kind of okay. This was going to help us along our journey. And I started engaging with courses on PurpleZA. And for those who have engaged on the platform, it is very addictive. So initially, when I started doing these courses, we talk about the confetti that goes flying and so on. It's a thing. It's a real thing. But when I started engaging with the platform, it was about the confetti. It was about the points and getting onto the scoreboard and the competition of the leaderboard and so on. But then what I noticed was it literally is like going down a rabbit hole. So I would start on a course and I'd say, right, tonight I'm going to sit for 1 hour. And then the confetti flies and I go, okay, I'm just going to do one more course. I look again and it's like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got school tomorrow and I'm still going. But what happened there was where the turning point happened. Because as I started engaging on the platform, I started seeing various things, methodologies, watching videos and so on. And I sat there and I thought, oh my word. I had no idea that actually I was doing more damage than good. What I thought was an amazing lesson, actually, in fact, on the other side of it. So I think the turning point came for me was engaging with the platform. And often there would be comparisons drawn in the way that we would do things or we used to do things, which for me was the reality right there and then. And it made me question what I was doing. It made me question what I was preparing the kids for. And I continued on this journey with PurpleZA, doing these courses. This mind shift was happening, but my head was full. I'd done so many courses, gotten so many badges, seen so much confetti flying, loads of excitement, but it was all in my head. And I realized that actually, I actually need to pause now. I've got all this information, all this knowledge, but again, what does it look like? How can I use this in the classroom? And then, of course, I'm part of a team as well, a teaching team. It's not just me on my own. Yeah. So I started engaging with my colleagues. I saw this on Purple and can we try this with the girls? So that's how it started. And even though my colleagues weren't engaging as much as I was on the platform, I could share with them what I'd seen. And together as a team, we decided that actually I had their buy-in and we were going to drive this with our grade 3 girls. But again, we didn't know how this was going to play out. Where do you start? Wealth of knowledge, but you're talking IBL, you're talking PBL. What does it look like? How do you even start? How do you plan for this? And I for me, the excuse, and for all teachers, either the excuse is the kids are too young because they're in the foundation phase, so we'll leave that for the older lot, you know.
I've heard that one before, yeah.
Yeah, looking at the stories on PurpleZA, it was high school kids. So, you know, that was a good excuse. The kids are too young. The other excuse was caps, you know. If we go this route, we won't be covered in caps and then we won't be compliant. So there was always an excuse. And we reached out to Purple. We got Lindsay on board. And then literally Purple took us by the hand and said, right, this is now how you go about it step by step. So we were then able to take all the knowledge and the pedagogies and the tech skills that I'd seen on PurpleZA, and we could now fit that into some sort of learning journey. And so that's how it started. It really was PurpleZA that got me thinking and questioning the way I was doing things.
And just as a disclaimer, I did not pay her to say that or tell her to say that. But yeah, I'm really glad because that was...
Lindsay, I must just add, I mean, you know this, I'm a Purple junkie and an advocate for Purple because I know that's where the shift happened for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm really glad to hear that because that was our vision when we designed the platform. And even the thinking around, you know, like you said, even when people, you know, kind of get into the gamification of it and get addicted to the confetti, you know, it's like vitality. Even if you're doing it for the points, you still get fit. And so you know, it's the same thing for your learning. So it's really good to hear kind of evidence that what we wanted it to do and bring to schools that it is doing that.
And so it's something so small, but it's that actually makes it addictive. And once you get addicted, there's no turning back after that. And I can tell you now,
if you have to be addicted to something, like learning's not the worst thing. Okay, so before everybody's coffee is finished, tell me about this out of this world space IBL that you created. Like, what did it kind of feel like for your students? What was the journey and what did you see?
Yeah, so it was a very exciting journey. As we did before, we know that our lessons need to, it needs to excite the learners. It needs to engage them from the very beginning. So we needed to take into account that we were going to do space and we needed to take into account the interest of the girls, the age at which we're working with. So we decided, look, I mean, it's a theme that the girls generally love. So we decided, look, they're quite naive and gullible when it comes to certain things.
Oh yeah, you can set the scene and spin a story, and it's like I'm in.
I mean, it's not something I would do with grade 7s. They'd probably look at me as though I'm insane. But what we did was we did an intercom announcement to say that the girls needed to go to a particular point in the playground. They had no idea what was happening. So everybody ran outside and we'd cordoned off a section of the playground. And in the playground was this spaceship, which one of my colleagues' husbands had actually created for us. So we'll just bring the whole family on board.
Yeah, community engagement. Let's go.
Collaboration after all.
There we go.
So you can imagine the girls get to the playground. Here's the spaceship with flashing lights and all kinds of things. So there was lots of shrieking, screaming, laughing, lots of excitement. And we just let the kids explore. We left clues around the spaceship. So there were blocks of ice and all different sort of clues. The girls then went back to the classroom and we had this video clip of the alien who then explained his story to the girls. And it's quite cleverly done if you look on the stories page of PurpleZA. The alien talks to the girls and we have a clever sort of translator tool at the bottom that translates what he's saying, because of course he's speaking in Martian language. And he explains to the girls that he had crash landed in our playground. He had no idea where he was. He'd bumped his head and he'd lost his memory. and he introduced himself as Vitox, but he needed to from. And he'd asked the girls to assist him in finding his home planet. So they immediately, number one, we had the attention of the learners. They were excited, but they couldn't immediately answer him in terms of which planet he'd gone on. They needed to go on a learning journey to go and discover. He's absolutely gorgeous, I must say. To go and discover and learn about all the different planets before he could actually... before the girls could assist him in identifying his home planet. So then we took them on a learning journey, learning about the different planets, bringing lots of tech integration into it. But we also needed to integrate all our other subjects. So, for example, in mathematics, we looked at three-dimensional objects, starting with planet Earth being a sphere. We went down a rabbit hole on 3D objects. For Afrikaans, we were doing the seasons, die seisoene. So, of course, we brought that into the mix there around the planets and the seasons and so on. So it tied in beautifully with our Afrikaans. English home language, I mean, there's so much you can do with language. We did lots of sort of comprehensions around planets and that kind of thing. So the girls really had quite a rich experience or journey on space. And I think the thing that stands out the most is that the girls were excited. They came to school in the morning. Are we learning about Vitox today? What's happening? You know? But there was suddenly meaning to the learning because they wanted to find out more about the planet so that they could help him find his home planet. So it was just all round excitement. And I think, Lindsay, you know, when you say to your kids on a Friday morning, it's Friday, the weekend is coming, and they look like, oh, you know, when kids don't want to have a weekend, then you know you're doing a phenomenal job. So,
absolutely. I used to say the same thing about break time. You know, with the bell would ring for break, and they'd be like, "Oh, like, can we stay?" And I think that's exactly it.
The big thing
that's real engagement and investment. It's not just compliance.
And the big thing is that we've covered CAPS, tick that box. We've done all the components that they need us to do, but so much more than what is written in those pages of the curriculum. Yeah,
that is the thing. And I think a lot of people say the curriculum is the enemy. You know, we kind of position it as the enemy. And I really think that what you've demonstrated so beautifully here is that the curriculum can be a springboard for innovation. It doesn't
absolutely
have to be a stumbling block. It can actually give you a lot of inspiration. And I'd encourage those watching to go and have a look at the story and kind of explore the learning activities they all shared there. Thank you so much for putting
Lindsay,
that out.
I think that the teachers were more excited than the girls were.
Oh, well, you see then, like, and that is the thing. I think a lot of teachers are like, I'm not going back to the old way of teaching because, like you said, a lot of teachers are like, this is boring. I'm tired of this. So yeah, that's it's just phenomenal and well done on taking the leap and designing something that your girls loved. I think we're going to have another episode so you can tell us about your other inquiries that you've done, because I know that this is not the only one that you've done, and it's really become kind of part of your learning, and the way that you do learning at Rustenburg, not just your teacher learning, but also, you know, designing learning for your girls. So one thing I noticed was you used quite a lot of technology, a lot of Google tools, in the mix there. Obviously your girls have got Chromebooks that they're using. Do you think that it's possible to do this kind of learning without those resources, or is this just something that, you know, we kind of really need technology for?
No, absolutely not. I think, look, we are very blessed at Rustenburg to have those resources, but one can take the tech out of it completely. There is no reason why one cannot do inquiry-based or project-based learning without any tech. I can run that entire unit with absolutely no technology and still make it collaborative, fun, engaging without the technology.
Exactly. I think it's so much about your driving question and so much about how you've scaffolded the learning and, you know, the story that engages the girls through the learning. And yeah, I agree with you there. But I do think that you did a great job of using the tech that you do have. And that's one of the reasons that we do our level 1 and level 2 Google courses to kind of help teachers use the tech, because there are a lot of schools that have it and aren't using it to create this kind of these kinds of learning adventures. So well done on that. Okay. So, I literally have one sip left. And I know when we said earlier, you were like, how do we, like, we're not going to talk for 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, we will. So my final question to you is, if anybody's watching this, and we're going to pop this video in your story so people can see the face and hear about the thinking and the journey, what advice would you give to teachers? And you can be specific for foundation phase teachers because that's your thing. What advice would you give to teachers who are thinking about, who may be feeling bored or feeling like they need to be teaching 21st century skills and they don't know how, or kind of want to explore inquiry-based learning or PBL, but don't really know where to start? Like, what have you learned from this journey that you think would be valuable to others?
So I think first and foremost, if you have the opportunity to connect with PurpleZA, as I said, I'm a PurpleZA junkie. I think if you are able to have the honor of working alongside Lindsay and her team, that would be your first bet, your best bet, in fact. But I think it's about really partnering with others who've been down that road. You know, you don't have to do this alone. There are many teachers out there who are doing phenomenal things. But one of the big takeaways for me was when we had all this knowledge and we were going to plan our first unit, we went big. We had the most amazing plans. We dived right in. And as we got stuck into it, we realized actually we were taking on too much and we had to backtrack a little bit. So maybe not to go in guns blazing, even though you were so excited to start that journey, just to take it in little steps and connect with other teachers who are navigating that space. I think it's all about collaboration, really.
Absolutely.
So, that would be my advice. But I would definitely say it's worth looking into.
For sure. And I think that was part of our vision behind our stories on the stories page, because like you said, when you see examples and you realize things are possible. So if anyone is watching this and you are doing amazing things in your classroom, please go and hit the tell us your story button on our stories page, because we'd love to inspire more teachers with more examples, because I think the more that we see what other teachers are doing, the more accessible it becomes. And absolutely connect. You'll see if you go on there's a button to email Renee, the Littley stories. Lee Walker from Pridwin has an amazing mini beast inquiry up there. So definitely go and look at the stories, but also connect and reach out. I think we really are better together. That's why we called Purple, because we're about purpose and people.
Lindsay, if I can just add quickly I think it was about 2 weeks ago that the Deputy Chief Specialist for Life Skills, Foundation Phase Life Skills, did a radio interview, which I tuned into. The WCD are definitely, they see the value in inquiry-based learning, and there's a big drive from the WCD side to bring that into teaching and learning. So, we're going to have to go there at some point.
Absolutely. And I think that's That is exactly what takes us to success, right? Is a shared vision and kind of leveraging each other's strengths. So well done on taking the leaps and leading the charge in terms of being brave and being hungry for learning and knowledge and having the courage to try and put things into practice and not just let them be nice ideas that you might use one day, but for actually doing the thing and for taking others with you.
At the same time.
Absolutely, completely. So thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to chat to you. You will see our upcoming events in our little outro shortly. If you are a techie innovator and you happen to be female, then definitely come and join us for Girls Who Google, where we'll be looking at all of these exciting pedagogies and technologies and how to drive change in your institution where you happen to be working. So I'm going to still bribe you, Renee, so that you are there, because I definitely think you should be joining us. But until our next episode, I would like to have a little coffee toast to keep on challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
Yes, and we will see you next time.
Cheers.